Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hybrid 911, the Future of Work edition for Recognition 3.0, live a virtual event in the Good for Work Hybrid Teams series. I'm Corinne Woodman-Hollaback, your co-host and Q&A moderator today. I'm the founder of Progressive HR and LinkedIn Top Voice in Company Culture. So please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're streaming from today. As well, what are you doing today? What is happening in your neck of the woods? And then we will go ahead and start our live momentarily. If you have any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and add those to the comments at any time during our live today. We will go ahead and answer those when we have an opportunity live, of course. So now to introduce our panelists, I want to start with Megan Bickle, who is the head of Megan Bickle is the head of talent development and employee listening Megan Bickle is the head of talent development and employee listening at Amplitude. She's passionate about the future of HR and shaping an organization's culture through talent and organizational development initiatives. Megan has held leadership roles at Western Digital, Dropbox, GE Digital, and Ubisoft. Megan has a master's in organizational development from the University of San Francisco and a bachelor's in organizational leadership from Marquette University. Megan is also a LinkedIn community top culture change voice. Hi, Megan. How are you doing today?
Fabulous. Always a pleasure to get to hang out with you, Corinne.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now I'm going to move on to Raj Chopra. Raj Chopra is the head of Americas at Velocity Foundation. Raj is an experienced leader and has held senior leadership roles in PE technology-based growth stage startup organizations. Prior to joining Velocity, he was the SVP of Business Development / Alliances for First Advantage from 2014 to 2019, where he built the function after a private equity roll-up of 3 background check companies. Wow. Welcome, Raj. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I see people based in San Francisco. I happen to be in San Francisco today. I'm actually based in Chicago, and I have a whole bunch of security outside my window for this big APEC conference. So there's a lot of excitement here in San Francisco.
So we should hear some bells and whistles during our live?
The security has got it well under control. I think they're making sure the presidents of all these countries get back home safe and sound. So hopefully not.
Wow, that does sound exciting. And now for our co-host, Geraldine Woloch-Ottomine is the founder and CEO of Good for Work, a Web3 total talent recognition software to boost team engagement. She created Good for Work after struggling to engage distributed and global teams as a team leader and HR director in all sorts of companies in the US and France. Thank you for co-hosting today, Geraldine, and thank you, of course, for sponsoring this live today. For some reason, there we go. Now your mic is unmuted.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be there and excited to be there with you, Corinne, and from San Francisco as well.
Thanks, Geraldine. So we're going to go ahead and start with our challenges right now. And of course, Geraldine, I'm going to have you introduce the first challenge. Actually, you know what? I think it would be a good idea to maybe go to our audience and quickly see who's joining us today. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. So we have Nazine Seif, another person from San Francisco, and Kelly Stewart from Missouri. Hi, Kelly. How are you doing? And one of our favorites here on the live, Marnie Robbins from Dallas-Fort Worth, and she can't wait for this conversation. Then we have Rhonda from San Francisco, more people from San Francisco. And wow, international group, we have Cecile from Paris, tech consultant and tech enthusiast, fantastic. More people from San Francisco, Jonathan Goodman, hello. And we have Monica Davenport from Baltimore, excellent, love this. So if you are just joining our live now, go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments, letting us know where you're streaming from and what are you doing today, what's going on. And with that, I'll have Geraldine start our challenge number 1.
Absolutely. So with a question, this question is why are employee recognition programs so popular? So it's the number one driver of employee engagement. So research shows that when employees believe they will be recognized, they are almost 3 times more likely to be highly engaged. So of course, it's not the only driver of employee engagement, and whether we call it the 5 C's of employee engagement, which are care, connect, coach, contribute, and congratulate, or the 4 C's, which is pretty much the same, which is about communication, celebration, collaboration, and culture. It's always the acknowledgement, backed by research from different fields, that the right approach for leadership to create high-performing teams is more about building trust than leading through fear. So, of course, sometimes it can be complicated to fix the culture of a company. But as Peter Drucker puts it, culture is strategy for breakfast. So what we all know as HR professionals about the recognition program's efficiency is a long list of proven benefits. So improved recruitment and engagement, improved employee well-being, it prevents burnout and the consequences of burnout, which is absenteeism, improved culture. And we all agree those are the attributes of a high-performing culture. But any plan to implement needs to be aligned with the company's HR strategies. This is why there's no one-size-fits-all engagement or recognition programs. And this is now that I would love to hear what Megan wants to share about recognition program. Megan, to you.
Thank you. Thanks for setting that up. I think around that question of how can we build the best proven recognition programs that boost employee engagement? It's such a fantastic question, especially now, right? So to give an example, an organization that I worked at that really valued leadership as a driver of business outcomes. We had a once a year company-wide engagement survey, and all leaders that received a perfect score. So their teams were really celebrating and honoring the hard work that they did, but connecting the dots of how leadership impact connected to business outcomes. Leaders were honored with this atrocious green jacket, which was really seen as a badge of pride. So imagine, if you will, being in an auditorium and your peers that were being honored and celebrated for this award being brought up on stage and gifted with this green sport jacket. It was really inspiring, to see leaders get this recognition, but also knowing like the hard work. So from recognition tying out to employee engagement, but also, it was this visual, it was, tangible. It was something that we could all see and we knew what the impact was. And this had a domino impact on the organization's culture and retention and motivation, for both future as well as other current leaders. As you've mentioned, recognition is a top driver of employee engagement. Statistics show that formal recognition programs reduce voluntary attrition turnover by 31%. So to build an amazing employee recognition program that boosts engagement, I'd really highlight the importance of integration within the overall HR and culture initiatives. So really connecting the dots rather than just creating a recognition program off by itself, tying it out to what is the company looking to achieve? Is it driving business outcomes? Is it improving morale? Is it improving a sense of belonging? So really just ensure that recognition is a part of an overarching strategy and you're taking a holistic approach.
Thanks, Megan. So for here, I'm going to go to Geraldine. Geraldine, what do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely I have a big question on top of my mind, which is how do we tap into the category of unengaged employees to increase productivity through recognition program, but also HR tech. So how can we make these best practices evolve in our new world of work? So here's the story. Once upon a time, in the pandemic aftermath, everyday employees would demand for more flexibility, while employers would demand for more engagement. But productivity has been declining in 2023 in the US and in Europe. And because of that, employee disengagement is a global phenomenon at its lowest in decades in many countries. So the drivers for employee engagement are the same. But the way of working and processes must be different and aligned with the new world of work. So we now talk about, of course, the gig economy, and the new keywords are flexible workplace and agile organizations with more project-based working. There's a new global definition of talent. They can be contract-based or part-time, not only full-time employees, and of course at the global level. There's a team-first approach. All the business is happening at the team level, and teams are more autonomous. And it's all about decentralization for maximum flexibility and resiliency. So in the end, the new world of work requires more soft skills. And as a recent Microsoft research put it, the new skills essential for new ways of working include analytical judgment, flexibility, and emotional intelligence. And we keep hearing the solution everywhere at the moment. It's about reskilling or upskilling. So this is also why more and more organizations are moving away from job-dominant operating models and job descriptions based on tasks towards skills-based approaches that drive more productivity, innovation, reduce silos, and improve employee retention and engagement. So this is a big deal, right? So, but how can we leverage Web3 blockchain in this skill-driven approach for organizations? So in the end, it remains a question of talent mobility because we face a shortage of great candidates. And we need to accelerate the speed of circulations, the speed of circulations of talents in parallel of reskilling the workforce, right? So this is where we can bring the Web3 capabilities to boost talent portability and mobility speed. We focus on what helps solve problems at the business level by identifying what soft skills and skills are needed to achieve the business goals. And this is what we call the talent gap. But blockchain can also help to increase the talent mobility speed through, for example, proven career credentials that can help employers to mitigate recruitment risk and stop fake resumes. Different credentials categories for employees can help them to capture on blockchain to help them manage their career, whether it can be training certificates, recommendations, or proof of recognition for their soft skills. So these all can be handy credentials in their digital career portfolio or wallet that can help them not die of exhaustion by filling out some recruitment forms. So if the new world of work is now driven by soft skills, the question is, how can we measure the soft skills? And for example, in some industries where we do have a people-first culture, where it's experience-driven, like the luxury industry or hospitality, the customer experience is driven by employee experience in a virtual circle that increases revenues. So this positive impact or achievement can be captured in blockchain and facilitate the mobility of people within the organization or the industry. And sometimes it can also help people to come back to their old companies in what we call a boomerang effect.
Thank
This
you,
is my take.
Thank you, Geraldine. So audience, we have a few minutes for questions right now before we go on to our second challenge. And again, we're going through the live today with 3 challenges. The first challenge that we just talked about is how to design it moved on me there. So how to design recognition program that fits your organizational engagement drivers. And the first part of this challenge, Megan discussed, it's really important to tie your recognition programs in with culture. So my question to Megan is, how important is it to tie your recognition programs with a name that reflects culture? Is it important at all?
Fabulous question. Yeah, I think an organization will see more success and impact if there's intentionality around the branding rather than if you simply call your program Employee Recognition Program. I'd really love, for those of you that are joining us live, pop in the chat. What's the name of the recognition program at your company? Would love to, we can crowdsource. But yes, ultimately you'll go farther if there's some fun branding and connection back to the organization versus, picking the least inspiring name possible.
And then Geraldine talked about how we, in this era of mobility and flexibility and upskilling and reskilling and internal mobility, that tying our recognition programs to some of the skills, or the soft skills that employees could learn, would be valuable for both the organization and the employees and the next organizations that they move on to. So my question, Geraldine, is, how many skills should we tie into our recognition program? How many soft skills?
The soft skills that make the difference in terms of performance, which is a simple answer, but it can start with the core values of the company. Usually companies don't have like that many core values, but it also can be aligned with what we know as making a difference in terms of performance at the team level. And usually it starts by identifying the talent gap, or identifying definitely the soft skills that is critical to business performance. So not that many. If we start with 1, 2, or 3, it's already, and we can make some positive reinforcement around that, it's great.
And so what you're recommending is that we use the blockchain for these credentials. And why is that?
Yes, absolutely. And Raj is going to explain a lot about that as well. But definitely blockchain as the portability attribute that makes that you don't lose, basically, your proof of recognition, or your proof, or your credential, or your proof of work, or etc. So that portability is the superpower of blockchain, but Raj is going to explain as well.
Yes, and
thanks, Geraldine. Actually, Raj, I've got a quick comment that I wanted to talk about from the audience. So Odette Garcia had said, personalizing the name of your engagement program makes it more personal for the employee and not feel like the efforts were brought in as a cookie cutter solution. To Megan's point, no culture is the same, so the effort shouldn't be either. The name should reflect that. Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Odette. Appreciate the comment.
Yeah.
And then audience, if you do have any comments about whatever we're discussing today, please go ahead and add those, and we will bring those up and discuss those live. So before going back to Raj, from what Geraldine mentioned, I wanted to go on to challenge number 2, which is what exactly Raj is going to talk about, is how can Web3 boost your talent management strategy? So with that, I'm going to hand that over to Geraldine quickly, and then to Raj.
Yeah, so quick intro for Raj. So let's start with a quick web history. So Web 2, as a reminder, is the second generation of internet, which we are using now. And it's known as the read and write web, or the social web, as it facilitates interaction between users and the sites, and is driven by mobile, cloud, and social networks. But Web 2 is highly centralized, with a handful of tech giants controlling most of the users' data. So Web 3, like Web 1, has decentralization at its core and is an attempt to break free from the control of large corporations. So Web 3 refers to a decentralized online ecosystem based on the blockchain, which uses cryptography and game theory. So it is envisioned as a web built by users for themselves, where we have control over our data and content, and we can freely transact data without any intermediaries, without losing ownership and privacy. So it's a kind of a democratic vision, right? And the breakthrough are more about digital ownership scarcity, because transaction without intermediaries makes digital scarcity, and transferability of assets. And we know the problem. We can approach Web3 as a new tech capability without falling into the rabbit hole. Yes, it's possible. No need to be an expert in AI to use ChatGPT. No, not anymore. All the same for blockchain. When it comes to a simple and understandable use case with that we are going to explain.
Thank you,
Raj.
Geraldine. Raj, it's to you now.
Yeah. So how do we use that? And Geraldine, great job on doing a great overview on Web3 and the blockchain. And what we see in Web3 is exactly people should own their own data. Where they went to school, where they worked, should really be their information that they want to share. And the next level that we've really talked about is really the stuff employers really want to see is those recognition programs. And I think Megan's example of the green jacket is perfect. People inside their companies get all these awards and achievements, but they live and die there once they go on to the next company or the next opportunity. But that green jacket in Megan's industry probably was well known for all the competitors. Oh, that individual won a green jacket or earned a green jacket because of leadership skills, or was at President's Club. But how do you get that to be not to die in the company, but also live on? And how you do that is by having these achievements memorialized through the blockchain by that legacy employer, issuing a badge facilitated by Good for Work and the recognition program that makes these soft skills more formal, where they can to be mobile and portable when they apply for new opportunities. They're not going to walk in and wear a green jacket and say, look at my green jacket, but they'll show the green jacket from that actual employer that issued that credential and can really show that this individual really was a culture warrior or really earned a lot of awards in that existing company. And that really shows more credentials, more than where you worked or where you went to school. And so we really see people owning their own data, curating a resume of credentials that can really showcase their talents, and they're permissioning it. So as Geraldine mentioned, they are opting this information into prospective employers and other opportunities.
Thank you, Raj. That didn't move you out of the Sol layout fast enough. So now over to Geraldine. Geraldine, how would you answer this challenge?
Yes. So how can we leverage, again, Web3 capability to engage employees with innovative talent management strategy? So by focusing on improving both customer and employee experiences, you can drive high performance and build an innovative talent management strategies that leverages blockchain. So based on my experience, there are two reasons that really speak to employees for leveraging a Web3 talent management strategy. And the first one is definitely career empowerment. It really speaks to what people understand, because it's all about building their career management process. It helps them to empower their career by building a digital career portfolio. And the term was coined early in 2021 and maybe before, but April Ryan in an HBR article mentioned about career portfolio, something that was very clearly seeing in the future. She was saying, as organizations begin reallocating talent to opportunities based on their capabilities, which is the new skill approach of organizations, they do that rather than job descriptions. It will definitely help employees to build a rich portfolio of professional, multidimensional experiences instead of being stuck in the vertical only career leader. So the first thing that talks to people is career empowerment. The second thing, as Raj mentioned, is ownership of their career data. You can lose everything when leaving a company if you lose access to a platform. Plus, you have the recency bias in career management that makes people only remember the latest events. So this is where portability is really the magic word, and you can keep your portable badge for soft skill forever in a wallet, and you do have ownership of your career data. So in other words, you have more power as an individual or as an employee by building your own career management process and owning data for the next step of your career. So how does that work? Think of badge credentials for your career portfolio, and maybe some of you already have digital certifications on blockchain because it's more and more frequent practices in university or business schools, for example, or also in the healthcare industry for the nurses. But at Good for Work, what we do, we capture continuous positive feedback in a 360-degree approach to remove biases. And how that increases employee engagement? Well, when you are being recognized on a continuous basis by different people for your impact or your achievements, you know where you are good at, your strengths, and you can build a personalized career path. So pioneers of different industries, especially consulting, are currently experimenting with this innovation of proof of recognition badge to make their employees brand ambassadors and take ownership of their career. So the use cases are in Web2, for example, in mid-sized company to reinforce the key behaviors for business performance at the team level. It can be for enterprises to retain and engage their key people, so managers or employees. And in Web3 use case, it can be about retaining and engaging global talents in this decentralized approach. And you know what? The reason number one that talks to employers for leveraging blockchain technology is to gather amazing qualitative people career data. I'm explaining. So today, we need quality data to feed the AI monster, right? And we need to audit the data in the first place as well. And quality workforce data should be about capturing every team's skills consistently, but also over time, not only one time per quarter or one time per year. Quality workforce data should be about removing biases in talent management process through different data sources and to facilitate as well internal and external talent mobility. So data-driven insights, this is definitely what can Web3 leverage. Some qualitative analytics to gain deeper insights into employee performance and preferences, which can be enable more personalized recognition or talent mobility thanks to a continuous capture of qualitative performance data. So this is my take on Web3 and recognition engagement and how it can be important for companies.
Thank you, Geraldine. I wanted to go to the comments really quickly and highlight something that Kelly Stewart had said. It said, we are now just researching an EE engagement program. And I responded with, what does EE mean? Do any of you know what she is referring to here? Raj?
Employee engagement, I'm assuming?
Employee engagement? I'm thinking the same thing, but I'm just wondering if it has something to do with the blockchain. So I wanted to clarify. Thank you for commenting, Kelly. Appreciate that. So I wanted to go back to Raj's portion, and I wanted to ask Raj if you could go a little bit more into the Velocity Network ecosystem and specifically around the experiment or the pilot that you did with the nurses at I can't remember the name of the hospital. Could you refresh my memory?
Sure. It's HCA, which is the largest hospital network in the U.S. And we like to think we're more than a pilot. We are actively getting nurses credentials. But I'd like to back up a little bit about what Velocity Network is and how we are trying to scale individuals to get their data, their credentials, and how do we get employers to consume them? And I know there's a lot of employer HR people on this call. The good thing is I'm not selling you guys anything. The great thing is I'm not charging any of our candidates. Where Velocity Network is founded is actually the systems that HR professionals use to get individuals into jobs. So Velocity Network Foundation is now currently made up to 80 HR tech and ed tech vendors that play a role in getting an individual from the job board to the ATS, to the background screening company, into that person to a job. And the second piece of Velocity is our actually blockchain infrastructure, our blockchain protocol, as we call it. It's our utility that makes this thing all work. So the foundation is made up of these 80 HR tech members and growing, and they actually govern the actual utility. So what does that mean? And that's Karina is like, how do we get started? So we looked at 3 what we call high friction ecosystems where individuals have a tough time getting into jobs, and they're critical. And so the 3 where we started is U.S. healthcare, banking in the Netherlands, and India IT. So highly skilled, highly friction, highly regulated. But let's focus on U.S. healthcare as the key because it's the most advanced. So how this all got started was during the pandemic. HCA, which is the largest for-profit healthcare system in the United States, went to their background screening company and said, look, and this started in Florida, we can't get enough nurses into jobs during the pandemic because we're waiting on credentials to have to be validated over and over again. And the issue is it's the same information that's already been through a background screening process, where you went to school, where you work, your licenses, all these credentials can be put on the blockchain and then be reused over and over again by the industry. And so what we started with HCA and their background screening company. They saw that this really worked. Then they went into and said, we really need our HRIS system involved. So they joined Velocity. And for them, they are doing the work for the employers to write this blockchain protocol so you can get this information instantly when that individual starts applying for jobs. And then obviously we got their job board involved as well. And so what we've seen, and that perfect time for the quote, is our biggest concern is, will these nurses know when these credentials come back to them, will they accept them? Because this is a new process. They went through the background check company process. These credentials were just sent back via email. They'd have to download what we would call a career wallet and then store them on their phone. So next time they apply for a job within HCA, they're in that job in a matter of days versus weeks. And what we saw, and we're live up in Florida and we're going to go enterprise-wide here starting in 2024, is 81% of those nurses accepted those credentials. That was key because they're not technologists, right? So that was great that it was intuitive. And even better, of those 81%, 87% said when they apply for a job again, they're going to use those credentials that are stored on their phone and they'll be into that job. So the licenses don't have to be rechecked because it's already been notarized by the primary issuer. And so that's where it starts. So what we see, and I know we talked at the start of the engagement, soft skills and employee engagement, that's the real stuff people are really excited for, because that's where it was mentioned here by Nazneen, that it is the exact way people are going to start curating themselves through validated credentials that are instantly trusted by the primary issuer that gave it. Old employers that have created employee engagement programs through Good for Work that measures all of this. That is also part of the Velocity Foundation. That this now creates this interoperable system where people can start applying for jobs using their phone, seeing a QR code, and we have the whole HR tech, ed tech industry working on this great data that gets people instantly into jobs and future opportunities. And that's how Velocity works. We really look ourselves as an industry utility for HR tech and ed tech.
Thanks so much for all that explanation, Raj. And I do apologize for calling it a pilot. Because I knew it was more than a pilot. I knew it was a program, but I was like, where do I begin with this? So I chose the word pilot.
No worries. I wasn't going to let that go. We are live and running. So to individuals, you'll see all the companies on our site. They may be some of your vendors you use today. It's they all believe in this vision. It's how do they get started? How do we get started? Because we have Velocity, and Geraldine's heard this. We have a chicken, egg, and rooster problem. So we need enough candidates to make this meaningful. We need enough employers involved wanting this. This is a no-brainer for employers, but then we need the HR tech world to really adopt this no-brainer innovation. And that's why we concentrated in these 3 specific industries. But we see that once this starts proliferating, this is going to be what people will want to do going forward.
Yeah, I can't imagine not wanting to do this, because as I think that we had this conversation, Geraldine, myself, Raj, Megan, on a post on LinkedIn a bit of a while back, why wouldn't anyone not want to go to an interview resume free and just sit down and say, you have all my credentials via the blockchain. What do you want to know about me? Like about something other than my skills, or sit down and say, okay, well, how are you a fit to me? And, just really lapsing over those useless, sorry if I'm offending anybody, but in my opinion, useless interviews that are just these stepping stones to the real interview at the end. I mean, like, how do you have to go through so many interviews to prove your skills? And with the blockchain credentials, you wouldn't, in theory, not have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Spot on.
So, again, I apologize if I offended anybody who really likes long interview processes. The question I wanted to ask Geraldine is, the Good for Work credentials, are they meant for all industries, or are they meant for certain industries, or are they industry agnostic?
Yeah, so to your point, we can remove friction in the recruitment process in many industries. And by adding some credibility can be beneficial both on the candidate side or on the employers and recruiter side, for sure. But it's true that where in industries where customer experience and employee experience, and usually speaking, people first culture comes first, and where you absolutely need to retain talent and to increase the talent mobility, whether internal or external, of course, these industries are the first users of the blockchain technology. So it can be the luxury industry, it can be the consulting industry, of course, Web3 industry, but where you need to have talent speed to meet the need and quality of talent. Of course, this is where it's very important to be at the top of innovations and to leverage the capabilities. And, we learned through AI that leveraging the capabilities can help business. And it's exactly the same thing for blockchain.
Thank you both, Raj and Geraldine. Greatly appreciate all those very in-depth answers to our questions. So audience, we're going to move on now to challenge number 3. Raj and Geraldine just talked about a few of these companies that are adopting in the blockchain, the Good for Work credentials, specifically within the Velocity Network. So I wanted to ask, or challenge number 3 in general is, how can we tackle the adoption challenges of these HR tech innovations? Geraldine just mentioned AI, but blockchain has been mentioned a lot throughout this conversation. And to kind of intro this portion, our future of work is technology. There's no and ifs or what's about it. This is going to happen. This is happening. Artificial intelligence is expected to contribute to $15.7 trillion to the economy by the year 2030. That's like less than 7 years away. And the global blockchain market is anticipated to grow 7.4 billion. That was actually last year. and it's going to make it up to 94 billion by the year 2027. So that's even less. That's less than 3 years away, or around 3 years away. So however, all this emerging technology is just not created equal, and we're often swayed by these latest trends or the newest shiny object. And a lot of people are very concerned about bringing on these new technology innovations due to the security, the impact of future regulations, the maybe employee resistance to digital transformation. So how do we balance supporting employees and being secure and doing our due diligence to pick the right tech investments? Do we focus on the education? Do we focus on thought leadership? Do we focus on helping champions within our organization bring on these tech innovations? Do we focus on, bringing out the data? What's the secret recipe for success regarding tech adoption? And I want to go first to Megan. Megan, what do you think?
Ooh, the secret success, the secret recipe. I don't know if I have one, but I do have a few thoughts on this. So first and foremost, I'm a huge proponent of employee listening. So having some focus groups, talking with people, and really understanding the current state, really understanding what's going on today, what are the pain points, talk with employees to find out, what is your knowledge on the current tech offerings within the company. If you have a recognition program, like what's the utilization rate? Map out the process of end to end. Like what does somebody actually go through in order to send somebody else recognition? Look at the user experience. I worked at an organization where in order to provide someone recognition, a person had to go to the company intranet site, click on recognition, scroll halfway down the page to another link. It brought up a new window. They then had to enter in their company email address for authentication. Then they could proceed with, in this case, selecting a company value to tie the recognition to. It was incredibly frustrating and way too many clicks. So really understanding the current state will help you as you're evaluating the new technology that you want to bring in to solve for the why. What problems are we trying to solve? Will the experience improve the current state? And just help from understanding what level of change management and storytelling you'll need to take employees on the journey. And then, we talked about this a little bit earlier as it related to recognition, but don't underestimate the importance of branding. And so really thinking of the new technology like a marketing launch. Treat it like a product. Have your go-to-market strategy. Are you launching a new technology? Are you relaunching existing technology that's been underutilized or there's some new fancy features? But have a plan around that as part of your change management approach. And wherever, that storytelling, tie it back to, by implementing this new technology, here's how this will better enable us connecting to our business outcomes and goals, like just being crisp on the why, as you're telling that story and bringing people along.
So we have a question from the audience for you, Megan, and this is from Jonathan Goodman. I'd love to hear from Megan as both a skills expert, i.e. having listened to her recent interview at Red Thread's Workplace Stories podcast, and a recognition engagement expert, comment on this vision of using recognition moments to help accelerate a shift to being a skills-based organization. And conversely, what does being a skills-based organization do for engagement? Great question, Jonathan. Megan, what are your thoughts?
Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. That's always great to hear. Obviously, I'm very passionate about skills and job architecture. And you bring up a really great point on how to use recognition to accelerate that shift. It's almost like you're celebrating that positive behavior that's happening within the organization and calling it out in terms of that's the ideal future state. Like, yay, they're doing what we want this to look like. And so like public recognition, as an example, I worked at a company where we were trying to make the shift of the HR function using data, recognizing, a gap in our HR business partners' utilization of certain dashboards, which then led to a lack of conversations with leaders, really tying out to what are the skills that we have in the organization, what are the gaps. And so in toying with like, how do we solve this, right? Like I can put together a training and teach people, here's how you use the thing, here's how you have these conversations, et cetera, but how to look at that overarching shift of helping HR become more data centric and data driven. I was talking with my leader at the time who had just received this 2-foot tall, 20-pound trophy as a reward of contributing on a project. And we came up with the idea of like this traveling trophy. And so she gifted this trophy and we called it, data-driven decision-making, or D cubed, triple D, and came up with some lightweight rules to really encourage people. Anytime you hear somebody using data in a conversation to answer, to solve a business solution, like nominate them and we'll take their picture and put it with this award. So really just trying to make it fun. But then also what we were doing was like calling out like, hey, I hear you. Or, ooh, Corinne used data in this sentence. Like I'm going to nominate her for this award. So using something fun, and in this case, free, as a way of starting that culture shift of that future state in which we wanted our HR partners to be using data. So fabulous question. I hope that's a fun example that you all can take back.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, that's a really big trophy. That's a huge trophy. Like, where was this trophy gonna go? Like you needed a trailer just to take the trophy somewhere.
Right. It looked like if any of you are familiar with London, it looked like the Shard, like this giant shard of glass.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
and now you can put it in a digital badge and it'll be fine.
Yes, there you go.
Exactly.
You don't even have to take it anywhere. It's with you as you go. So moving on to Raj, and Raj, in answering this question, the challenge of how to adoption of these new tech innovations. I'd like you to give us an example of some of the challenges or some of the issues that you had in starting up the badge wallets for HCA. But first, before that, I wanted to acknowledge Cecile's comment and have you answer the question that she poses. We will need to build a new generation of ATS, which is usually built like formal resumes to enable recruitment without a resume.
Yeah, I realize I just blurted out no. I did not mean to say no. No, it's great. It's a great question, and I'm really glad you asked it. The ATS, we've designed this so carefully because we know change management will break anything. Change management on the employer side, really not intuitive to the candidate side, but also change management to the HR tech infrastructure. It's got to be simple. So first of all, our technology is open, not proprietary, and it's royalty free. The HR tech entities write to our blockchain protocol to get these verifications verified. These credentials verified. And so, Cecile, there's no need to replace an ATS. The ATS can just write to our protocol. We also have a service that will also validate credentials for the first time through a submission of a resume, and then it will be delivered back. So you can keep your legacy process. The first time it goes through the background screening process, that individual will now have their resume validated with what they've submitted, and also the digital credentials. So the process, there's no need to replace any ATS. The ATS, to be part of the interoperable network, though, would have to write to our blockchain protocol, which we've made with one developer and one business product owner. It's 3 to 6 weeks, depending on their time commitment every week. So it's a very thoughtful and good question. I'm glad you asked it.
Thanks, Raj. Speaking of ATSs and speaking about the resumes, verifying a resume, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work on the blockchain. Like, how does that happen? Like, how long does it take, really? Because to me, that's especially for somebody who's had over 20 years of a career, that's kind of a lot of work. Like, explain that.
In Corinne, it's still a lot of work the first time because you're going to still go through that background check process the first time. But then once they're verified and those verifications are on the blockchain, it's not a lot of work. So we have this, there's a lot of technology out there that we have resumes that can be read and the credentials then taken by the background screener. And then they go ahead and they validate the time that the person worked that they say they worked, or if they even worked there and such. So that process at the front end will always be there until they get those verifications validated, sent back to them. And then when they apply again, that bottleneck is gone. So there is this is a long process of individuals getting used to this idea that they're going to be able to use their verified credentials going forward. But we have to start somewhere. So I had another great segue question about the Queer wallets. So we at Velocity have our de facto wallet, but we do not want to be a Queer wallet. We started the ecosystem in healthcare, India, IT, and in banking in the Netherlands. We are now, at the end of this year, we're going to have 5 more wallets, Queer wallets, coming on board, from a couple staffing firms who've created their own wallet to other entities that are building relationship management with job candidates. So where people want to put their information and store it depends on what they're comfortable with. Where we see this at critical mass, and I mean, is LinkedIn would be the perfect entity to build a wallet. Indeed could be a perfect entity to build a wallet. We see at scale, there's going to be entities like that are perfect entities that are already having people put all their information on there. They just haven't been validated yet. So think about this as we as an infrastructure at Velocity enabling these other new technologies, the resume readers that check credentials, and all this other ecosystem of tech that really makes a frictionless way to apply for jobs. But we got to start somewhere.
And I think that we started probably, I don't know, let's say, 5 years back with universities like MIT starting to put their degrees on the blockchain. So, I mean, I think it was 5 universities that really spearheaded their degrees on the blockchain to really try to push that along. And here we are 5 years later talking about, putting whole CVs on the blockchain.
Absolutely right. And we know that initiative very, very well. We've been talking to them and they would be perfect to put their credentials and issue them on the Velocity blockchain, because people would want to see people graduating from MIT. So it is this whole network effect of once more and more people get used to saying, oh, wait, I have my credentials. I get to control them. I get to put them when I apply for jobs, what I want to share, when I want to share. That is really where I started. The self-sovereign nature of this is very important to Velocity. It's privacy. We have no PII information, and they're not. These verifications or our information isn't sitting with a third-party vendor that gets hacked and stolen and used. I mean, and this is now truly security and people owning their own data.
Love it. All right, so we have 5 minutes left, everyone. So with that, I am going to hand the reins over to Geraldine for a summary. What I'm going to do is when I do end the live, I'm going to stay on for a little while because we do have a lag between what we're saying and when you receive it. So I want to give you the links to the LinkedIn pages for Raj, Megan, Geraldine, and for Good for Work, because I know you're going to want to follow these lovely panelists and their thought leadership as well. Good for Work, when we have our new events coming up in the new year. So again, when we end this live, I'll be staying on the StreamYard here to put everybody's not credentials, we're gotten the credentials, but
soon.
I don't want to say credentials, LinkedIn links in the live. So with that, Geraldine, over to you.
Yes, I love this conversation, and I really hope that it can inspire to action, because we can definitely see the value of leveraging Web3 for, removing friction in the talent mobility in general. So, and I just want to conclude very quickly by telling you something about how important it can be, the career management process for everyone. So people won't decide to change unless they find an emotional connection with something. We know that. And what speaks best to people in our new world is flexibility, autonomy, or opportunities for professional growth. Okay, so the best meaning in work and life will definitely remain continual growth, learning, and autonomy to fulfill our role and gain as much as freedom as possible to design our work-life balance, which goes with a flexible schedule as well. And guess what? You know what the sources of happiness at work are? So it's exactly the same as in our personal life, actually. It's about gratitude and what psychologists call the sense of agency, which means in plain words, the sense of control and accountability of our own actions. And this is where the more we can control and focus on our impact, and by being empowered, this is where definitely Web3 can serve that better meaning at work, especially in talent management and in HR tech. So this is where this new world of work, with it very pushing us to be empowered. This is where it meets the Web3 capabilities. So that was my conclusion. And I thank you so much for this conversation. I loved it. Thank you, Corinne.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Geraldine. So everybody, with that, I am going to end our live here. And Geraldine, you're welcome to stay on with me as we're ending the live. So thank you, Raj. Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much, audience, for spending the time with us today. Greatly appreciate your time and greatly appreciate all the comments and the questions. Thank you.
Yes.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone.
Love the engagement. That was great.
Thanks, everyone. Ending the live now.